everybody, and welcome to ISCO Insights. I'm Chelsea Rabideau. I'm your host today. We're so excited to have you joining us. We are going to be taking an in-depth look at the McElroy iSeries machines and doing a little side-by-side comparison with the Series 2 machines as well. But before we get started with all that great information, I want to do just a couple little quick housekeeping things. Just a reminder, if you have any questions throughout the presentation, there's the Q&A function at the bottom of the screen. Just enter your questions in there anytime they pop into your head. If it's on the topic we're talking about, we'll ask it right then and there. Otherwise, we'll hold it to the end. We also have a question and answer section at the end of the presentation. So again, don't be shy with the Q&A function. Throw your questions in there and we'll get to them at some point during the presentation. And if we don't get to it during the presentation, we will contact you afterwards. There's also the chat function. If you're having any technical issues, put those in the chat box and we will try and help you out with those as much as possible throughout the presentation. So let's get started with things here. We are so excited to have a great group of panelists for you today. Myself, looking a little bit different, not so blonde anymore. We've got Andy Niblett here in studio with us. He's with our rental team.
A little less beard for me.
We've kind of changed up our looks a little bit, but then also down in Tulsa, we have Chris Greggs, who's a product manager with the Trackstar iSeries line of machines. So happy to have him. And then we also have Gary Bouvet, who is our very own in-house ISCO HDPE guru. So we are so excited to have both of them with us down in Tulsa. So we're excited about that. But before we get to them, we are talking about the iSeries, mainly the iSeries, also a little bit about the Series 2. But Andy, tell us a little bit about how ISCO has been handling the introduction of the iSeries in the market.
Sure thing, Chelsea. Really happy to be here on ISCO Insights again, talking about the iSeries technology and the new products that McElroy has coming out in the Trackstar range. So iSeries represents a large part of what we're doing and our main initiative in our rental fleet here at ISCO with keeping a young, well-maintained, well-equipped fleet. So we're really happy to be bringing this product to market through the rental fleet. It gives us an avenue for people to use the equipment before they make a decision to purchase, or anyway, they just get to get their hands on it and get comfortable with it. Along with that commitment to bringing this product to market, also we have a major commitment to education around this product, which is why when we started to roll this equipment into our fleet last summer, we started an initiative alongside of McElroy's white glove service to actually have one of our technicians on a job site to orient a user with the equipment in the iSeries, just to bring that comfort level up. Right. So we're doing that sort of thing. We're also doing hands-on demos around the US in key markets. We have our next one coming up in April 12th down in the Orlando area. And then also utilizing resources like this iSeries to get the word out and make sure everybody's comfortable with the equipment.
And by the way, happy St. Patrick's Day. Happy March Madness. Got to get those out of the way. We're wearing our green today. Hopefully everyone out there is having a great Thursday and happy St. Patrick's Day. And we appreciate you spending the day with us here with ISCO Insights. We know there's a lot going on. We've got the Michigan game on right in front of us, not to tattle on ourselves, but we like to keep up with things here. So without further ado, we are going to be heading down to Tulsa, and the guys down there are going to be going over a few things that we'll run through in just a minute, but we want to give you a little intro to the iSeries from McElroy first. All right, so once we get going here, we've got a lot of information to cover, so we want to get started on that as soon as possible. We've got a few things that we're going to go through. I'm going to give you an outline of the presentation here. We're going to talk about the side-by-side comparison, the iSeries to the Series 2, and just see some of the things that have evolved since the Series 2. Safety first, which is one of ISCO's paramount values, and some of the new developments with the iSeries that have put safety at the forefront of the development design of the machine. We'll go through the difference in the operator screens, joint quality, productivity, fusion comparison. So like I said, we've got tons of information. So let's head down to Tulsa. We've got Gary Bouvet and Chris Gregg standing by down in Tulsa at the McElroy headquarters. Hey guys, how's it going?
Hey, good afternoon, Chelsea.
Hello,
Good
Chelsea.
afternoon, Gary. Just so you know, and here I'm gonna put a Siri's been listening to me on my Apple Watch. If you pick that up on the microphone, Barrett, can you put up the first poll question that we have, just so we can kind of gauge how familiar people are with the iSeries? We'll pop that up there and get some answers going. Let us know what experience you have with the iSeries, if you've seen one before, if you've used one before, things like that. But Gary, while we're waiting on that, I just want to let you know the score of the Michigan-Colorado State game is currently 66-58. And I want to take a moment here to thank Gary for being with us on this, his favorite day of the entire year, the beginning of the NCAA tournament. Gary, we appreciate you.
Well, thank you, Chelsea. I mean, you basically have me working on a national holiday.
I know, it's like asking you to work Christmas.
Exactly. I mean, this is my Christmas day, and I'm missing it. But you know what? I'm with my good friend Chris Gregg's old home week back here in Tulsa. You know, I started my career HDPE wise right here in Tulsa in this very room. So
it's homecoming.
Just about. So
it's homecoming. It's great to have Gary back, and it's great to have the opportunity to talk about the future of fusion in the iSeries.
Absolutely. Well, let's get started into this. Or did the poll question come up, Chelsea? I didn't know. Did that already?
We did.
Oh,
we had some people answer in there while we were chit-chatting, but yeah, you guys go ahead and take it away. Let's get started.
Fantastic. Well, let's get started, Chris. And you know, this machine, this Series 2, we're looking at a comparison between the two units, right? And you know, the track machine itself is actually celebrating an anniversary, right? I think it's 25 years, about the age you and I are.
25,
right? Yeah.
Right. 25
Gary,
years.
we don't lie to our viewers.
Both the data logger and the TrackStar, they're about the same age.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about why the change. I mean, this Series 2 unit's only been around about 5 or 6 years, and so why did you move and create this new iSeries version?
Why the evolution to the iSeries? Well, we've got two great fusion machines here. One in the Series 2 TrackStar fusion machine, and the other in the new iSeries TrackStar. Right. Both great products. And to understand how we evolved from one to the other, you kind of have to think back to where we came from. Okay. And it was 25 years ago that we evolved into the TrackStar line, which proved to be very popular, very highly productive, just really took the market by storm, as well as the data logger. Okay. And so this Series 2 TrackStar line was out we were in production for about 5 years on that particular product. And the data logger had evolved to a sort of a next generation data logger 6. And with the data logger 6, we got a lot more computing power and started considering things like guided workflow. How could we take the operator through that fusion process and just make everything more efficient? Okay. Guided workflow.
Makes sense.
And then with the evolution of the new data logger 7, we had an even more powerful Android technology. We were thinking, okay, what's the next big thing for TrackStars? What's the next big thing for data logger? What's our industry facing? What challenges are we seeing today? How do we find and retain new fusion technicians? You know, how do we attract younger people to our industry? how do we get them trained faster?
Right.
How do we make them proficient faster? Right. How do we get them operating at a very high level of quality?
Right.
And so what we did is we took that computing power in the Data Logger 7, which you see on both of these machines, by the way. It's a Data Logger 7. And we integrated the Data Logger 7 into the iSeries platform. What that did is it took the Data Logger from just being a device that's going to record, store, evaluate fusion joints to really the main operator interface. Okay, so the iSeries uses the Data Logger to communicate with the operator and the operator with the fusion machine. So really, it was a natural evolution. Okay. Yeah. And with that evolution and with that technology, we were able to really incorporate some cool features that I think our users are really growing to appreciate.
Yeah. Well, let's take a look at, some of the changes, Chris, that have been made in the machine. And, we can really, I want to go back to, Chelsea hit on it. It's safety first. And there are two neat things that I think the iSeries brings to the table. We're going to talk about them more in depth, but I just want to highlight them. And that is the hydraulic lockout, right? Which really gives the operator a safe working area should he need to do something inside the fusion zone area.
Right.
And then the collision avoidance. I mean, we've all been on a job site and had that accidental damage of opening a jaw into a heater, or
if you haven't had that experience, you haven't been doing this very long.
Exactly. So those two features right there, which we'll get into later, Chris, we'll demonstrate those and show those to the people. But those two features really are big advantages that I think the iSeries brings.
Those are really key and wonderful features, but there are some other things we've done with the iSeries to enhance or elevate the level of safety. We've added a couple of emergency stops, for example. We've got recessed paddle levers for controlling the actions of the carriage and the indexer. So you have to actually reach in to activate those, so you won't have incidental bumps and those kind of things. So there's a lot of little things that add up to some really big things.
Sure, yeah, it's really neat features. So let's start, Chris, looking at kind of the layout here. You look at this Series 2, and this is the kind of machine that I've spent 28 years in the business operating. Right, hydraulic manifold. It got all these different hydraulic levers on the machine that you see here that control all of the features, all the functionality of the unit, right, from opening and closing jaws. You look at the iSeries, you don't see any of those. I mean, there's like 18 of them here, and you don't see any of them on the iSeries.
Yeah, we have a much cleaner control system here and a different way of interacting with those various controls through the CAN communication on the machine. So these are CAN keypads that are also intelligent. So you can see, hopefully on camera, the LED backlit. We can also give those keypads action to guide the operator towards the next required step in the process. Okay. Right. So the intelligence there built into the iSeries machine really works with the operator to take them through that fusion process. And as you look at the fronts of these machines, if you stand back a little bit and squint, they almost look the same.
Yeah.
Okay. But if you examine the details, you mentioned all of the hydraulic valving, the plumbing associated with that, the guarding associated with protecting those controls, all just adds sort of the mass to this side of the machine. And if you look at the iSeries, it's just clean.
Yeah.
It's crisp. There's not a lot to get in the way and very efficient to operate.
Absolutely. And one of the things that I noticed with that, the strategic positioning of the buttons that you have on the CAN system are very similar to the hydraulics, the levers and everything that we're accustomed to using on the Series 2.
That was very intentional, Gary. As we were designing this machine, as our engineers were designing this machine, they intentionally tried to keep the controls in the same familiar locations. So technicians in the field wouldn't have to relearn any of that muscle memory that they've grown to appreciate over the years from operating the legacy machines, and that would carry right over to the iSeries.
Yeah, that makes it easier for us long term.
It really does. And one of the sort of aha moments that I had as I was first seeing the iSeries technology, the iSeries platform, was in that vehicle display.
Yeah,
that we don't have on screen right now.
I think we got to kick that next slide, if you would, Barrett, and we can see that vehicle display for the two
Is it
machines.
possible to bring that
there
up?
we go.
Yeah. So this is the vehicle display on the Series 2 machine versus the 7-inch touchscreen display on the iSeries machine. And I was very familiar with both of these, but until I had the machine side by side, I didn't realize the extent to which we had really evolved in technology, not just McElroy, but just technology in general in the short period between the time we came out with that Series 2 machine and the launch of the iSeries.
I mean, it just goes with every other form of technology, Chris, right? I mean, you talk about phones, computers, what are they good for? Two years or less, right? And then you're due for an upgrade, up for a new one. So I guess this is no different.
This is no different, right? So in many ways, this evolution to the iSeries platform was very natural.
Yeah, and I love that the new displays. You said it's a touch screen. Everything for the operator is right there. He can diagnosis on the machine, telling him where maybe a potential problem is, and direct him right to where he needs to go.
That's right. Yeah. So the intelligence in the Data Logger 7 carries right over through that CAN network to that display, and the whole machine is evaluating itself continuously. And if anything's not functioning as it should, it's going to tell you.
That's great. Yeah. So let's look at, we've talked about some of the controls. Joint quality is a big aspect. It's what everybody's looking for, right? More and more people, we're seeing, data loggers required on job sites for fusions. We've got, more inspectors. I don't know how many inspectors we've trained over the years on the fusion process to understand. So joint quality is big in all markets.
It's really big.
And with the new iSeries, all right, let's go on the Series 2. We can data log, right? We can record that weld, know exactly what we're doing, and have a high degree of confidence that the weld is completed.
The not only the data logger technology, but the data logger vault.
Right.
Okay. All of that sort of works together. And that Data Logger 7 that you see here on the Series 2 machine is the same Data Logger 7 that's integrated into the iSeries machine here. I could literally take any Data Logger 7, plug it into an iSeries machine, and that iSeries technology would just wake up.
Right.
Okay. And you get all that added functionality of the iSeries built in that same familiar platform.
Yeah. So now it's not just recording a joint, it's actually the brains, the operator controls of the entire fusion machine.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's a great way to put it. And we call that the Fusion Guide Control System.
Okay.
The Fusion Guide Control System is the technology we use in the Data Logger 7 and the iSeries to give us really the 3 levels of operator interaction with the machine. Okay. You can select each of those 3 levels independently, depending on the experience of the operator, depending on the particular needs of a job site or the requirements and specifications being used at the time. So you're able to select those 3.
Yeah. Well, let's look at those on the guides, the 3 different levels that we have, right?
I'll just, the 3 levels, level 1, as an example, is what we would consider manual fusion. Okay. That's where the operator is going to be in full control of the actions of the machine. For example, carriage movement. Okay. And the operator will also be responsible for the timing of those actions. So it's as close as we've got in the iSeries to a legacy machine, any other McElroy hydraulic machine.
Right.
The difference is on the iSeries, drag is automatically compensated for the operator. It's calculated at the touch of a button, and the proper pressures will be preset by that intelligence without the operator having to turn dials and read gauges. Now, level 2, you still have automatic drag compensation, but level 2, the operator is in control of the timing of certain events through the process, but then the machine will perform that function when prompted. So if I decide, for example, my beat up process is complete, as an operator, I would simply tell the iSeries machine, beat up's complete, let's move to the next step. And the machine itself would perform the shift sequence and move on to the next step.
Right.
Level 3 then is fully automatic. Once you've faced the pipe and inserted the heater between the pipe ends, you simply press start fusion, the machine takes over and fuses the pipe for you automatically.
Wow. So yeah, that's a big change, right?
That is a big change. And we often ask people when they first experience the iSeries, which level do you think you're going to use? What do you see being the most and we get a variety of answers, but in reality, each of the 3 fusion levels has a place and time. They each are well suited to certain types of applications.
Right. And we've got a guide. Andy, kick it over to you to talk a little bit about this fusion guide level. When is the appropriate time to use level 1 or level 2?
Hey, Gary, before we get to that, I just wanted you to know that Michigan won. They beat Colorado. Sorry.
Go Big Ten, go Big Ten. You know, that is the power conference this year. So thank goodness I'm not going to miss my Fighting Illini. They're on the screen tomorrow night.
We might have busted a couple brackets there.
Sorry, but in Oklahoma here, I don't get it.
You're a football state.
All right, I'll hand it back to Andy. He'll do some explaining.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, thanks for kicking it over, Chris. So one thing I'd like to start with is actually something that you taught me this week, is that this fusion level guide publication you just saw, this brochure, this is actually on the DL7 now, right? So if an operator is standing there and maybe have some questions about what level should I be using, they can reference this and see those different scenarios that we're discussing.
It'll be right in front of them.
Yeah, that's pretty dynamic. I love it. So just to talk about this a little bit, one thing I'll reiterate what Chris said. On all 3 of these levels, the machine is automatically taking care of your drag pressure adjustment, and it's also taking care of the old shift sequence and the manifold block. It takes care of all those things, selects all the pressures for you. So to go a little bit deeper on level 1 in the manual operation, you would be using that if you're doing in a tie-in situation or possibly in ditch or put in a fitting in line, someplace where you maybe didn't want the full stroke of the carriage to open up and back and have a limited room. It's complete manual operation, just like a lot of you operators are used to with the Series 2. So on level 2 of the Fusion Guide level, the way this one works, a little bit more in detail again, is after you face the pipe and you bring the heater in, all the actions can be performed automatically when the operator confirms for that action to happen. So let me say that again. So the operator is in control of exactly when each of those fusion processes are happening. And you might use this in extreme weather conditions where it's really cold outside, or maybe have a wind chill where you're going to require a little bit more beat up time than what you would in level 3. Level 3, the Fusion Guide, level 3 of the Fusion Guide workflow is going to be more on a job site that's just your typical job site, highly repetitive. Everything's normal, standard, nothing out of the ordinary. So this is going to be high production, face the pipe, put the heater in, push the button, and let the machine do what it does.
Yeah, thank you, Andy. That's that every situation is going to be a little bit different, and there's going to be different times. You're never going to be locked into one level at any time, Chris.
That's right.
Yeah.
And as you think about one of the exciting things, we talk about productivity with the iSeries machines. If you think for a minute about level 3 as an example.
Mm-hmm.
In level 3, once you face the pipe and inserted the heater, as Andy mentioned, the machine takes over. You press start fusion and the machine is going to fuse the pipe for you, and it's going to tell you when it's done.
Right.
Okay. So if we think about productivity, what else could an operator on that job site be doing during that fusion process.
He could be setting up a second machine, right?
He could be operating a second
he
machine.
could be loading his pipe for the next, getting ready for the next
he could be
weld,
organizing the other staff on site. Okay. Where do I need to make a cut? Where's that fitting that I need? I need to, you know, whatever it may be. It frees the operator to see to other duties that lend itself to a productive, profitable job site.
Exactly.
One quick question here, guys, before you move on there. Gene has a question. Do you still have to input the temperature from the heat plate before every weld on the iSeries?
That is just like on the data logger 7. Yes, that's a data logger function. You do have to input if you select that. It's actually a preference. If you want to record the temperature, you have to input the temperature. Now on the iSeries, we do have the ability right here on the data logger screen to see what the temperature is reading on the RTDs.
Yes.
Okay. So we get a readout here, but it's not actually measuring that surface temperature for you.
Yep.
It's a good question.
Yep. Really good
Great.
question.
Thank you. And just a reminder to our audience, feel free to pop those questions in the Q&A function anytime you have them, and we'll ask them throughout. So back to you guys.
Hey, Chris, hey, this is real quick. This is Andy. One thing before we move on from talking about the Fusion Guide. So this is a big deal, right? To have the guided workflow and the DL7 integrated into the iSeries. One of the things that I always talk about, I don't think that it can be overstated enough that the DL7 is an integral part of the iSeries. So not only do we have this workflow, but we also have the industry standard for quality control at our fingertips with every weld we're making. We also have access to McElroy's optimized cooling, which put that in conjunction with level 3 automation. I mean, this is some major productivity gains. So that's pretty exciting to me.
It really is. The iSeries platform has really unleashed the full potential of the data logger and the McElroy Vault.
Right.
Okay. It really takes it to a whole new level.
Right. And since Andy mentioned productivity, right, that kind of leads us into, kind of our next topic, which is, the productivity. And, one of the things that lends itself to, productivity is less downtime.
Yeah.
We've touched on the collision avoidance, right? When you don't have that machine going down and because you've damaged something on it, waiting for a part to come in or having to swap a machine out, that increases productivity.
It goes right to the bottom line. More uptime is better.
That's all the contractors really like that song.
It also touches to that collision avoidance touches to the safety aspect that you started this discussion with.
Right.
Just less likelihood of damaging yourself or the machine.
Right. And then we've already touched on the operator being able to essentially multitask on the job site while he's in level 3 doing other things, getting ready. That helps speed up that input. But there's other things that are on there that you don't see from this angle on the machines, Chris. And that is the cowling design that you have on the backside of the platform on the stationary jaw side.
Yeah, we've changed the engine side of the machine completely. And we've done it again with a lot of forethought. One of the challenges on a job site is dealing with fittings.
Right.
Okay. And oftentimes you might have to take the jaw set off of the vehicle, whether you're in confined space or not, just to provide clearance for manifolds or fittings or valve bodies or, things of that nature. Well, that was a challenge on the job site that was identified early on. And so with the iSeries, we had the luxury of being able to design to help improve that functionality. Yeah. And now with the iSeries, we're able to fuse full-size fittings in that interfixed jaw with the carriage on the vehicle. Okay.
Yeah, that's
so
huge.
That is really a big deal. If you're a guy in the field,
if you've had to do the fittings in the field on the Series 2, it's a little laborious to accomplish that.
If you're a field guy, you're going to love this.
Yes.
So that was a big deal. And you can see it now on the graphic on the screen. I don't know how long that's been up there, but you can see the clearance allowed. So we could actually, this TrackStar 900i, we could actually fuse a 36-inch full-size T,
Right.
without removing the carriage from the vehicle.
That is nice. And when you do have to do it, and speaking of carriage removal, when you have to do an in-ditch weld, those tie-in welds, that last weld of your section, or taking the upper works off on the iSeries, I found to be much simpler than what's on the Series 2.
It has been greatly improved. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I
again,
agree.
another productivity enhancement. Now, that cowling redesign, was that based because the engine size or framework changed, or what?
I think with the iSeries as a design consideration, that was one of the challenges. We wanted to be able to do diffuse fittings on the vehicle. And so that played a part in engine selection and cowling design. So that all worked together. It wasn't one happened, therefore the other could. It was, how do we make this overall machine deliver all of the capabilities that we wanted to deliver for our operators in the field?
Oh, fantastic. Well, it really is a great design, and a benefit to the guys in the field. I know they will appreciate it when they get the opportunity to
we
use
hope
it.
so.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Gary, while we're on that point, I would like to pop up our next poll question, which is just kind of assessing what people feel like is going to be the most impactful feature of the new iSeries when they're out on the job site. We've got a couple options here: the increased safety function, which obviously is a big deal for any job site, higher productivity, better quality control, or do you fall into the fourth option, which is you just like buttons? Go ahead and answer that for us and let us know. I told you guys I'm operating. We've got level 1, level 2, level 3. I'm operating on level 4, which is just not ever at all.
Let somebody else do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Chelsea,
So,
I'm going to be interested in what these answers are. It wouldn't surprise me if we got answers across the board there, because really.
Right. Yeah. It's interesting, just to hear what people prioritize when they're out in the field. And, I think for all of us, we've got a question here too that I'm going to pass on to you, but for all of us, safety is a huge deal. But, we also want to be able to keep up with our deadlines and meet all of our schedules and all of those things. So those are important as well, and have great quality control. And the iSeries, the new features and benefits, are really putting that into the user's hands. So Joey Rico says, Fusion operator safety is so important. So it's nice to see hydraulic lockout included in the iSeries. How exactly does that work? Is it automatic or is that operator controlled?
Well, that is a great question, and we're actually going to demo that. You couldn't have queued that up any better for us, Chelsea and Joey.
I'm a pro, Gary.
So thank you. But
you want me to start the machine up?
I think, we're going to go ahead and we're going to kick on the series, the iSeries machine. It's pretty quiet. Chris is going to actually show that. So why don't you go ahead, Chris, and kind of show that.
Yeah. So I just started the machine up. I just did it with the press of a button here. It's very easy. You might be able to see some flashing lights. I just confirm the locations of the jaws and jaw clamps, and I can now operate the machine freely. Okay. It operates very much like one of our legacy machines might operate. But for example, after I face the pipe, Gary, I might want to reach in between these jaws and remove shavings.
That's normal.
As an example. It happens to, every fusion joint. Well, with a legacy machine, I might have to turn off the engine, or I might be in a hurry and late in the day, and I might not. But to be safe, what we really would want to do here is just hit a hydraulic lock. And there's a single button here I just touched.
Right.
And when I touch that button, you'll notice all of these keypads turned red. The red keypad means none of these function. I can't move the indexer. I can't open or close the carriage.
Right.
But I do have two LEDs here that are still lit. One is the engine stop. So I can turn the engine off if I want to.
No need to now.
No need to now.
Right.
Or I can disengage the hydraulic lock. Now, we're thinking about safety here. We're locked out. We're doing our work. and we're ready to unlock it. Or what if somebody comes up and just incidentally bumps that control?
Right.
You'll notice as I bump that control, it doesn't disengage the hydraulic lock. I have to intentionally hold that button down for 3 seconds. At the end of 3 seconds, you see the red lights go away. I again just verify the location of my jaws and clamps, and I'm back in operation.
Back in business. Really, really simple to do, to operate, but really does add a tremendous amount of safety.
Yeah, and it drives home the value of those lights and the action of those lights. I don't have to wonder what comes next.
Exactly. I mean, you compare that to a Series 2. They've got a guard on these hydraulic levers, but there's a potential for a piece of pipe to drop on it, or somebody to bump into it accidentally, right? It wouldn't take much.
We hope not. Yeah. And we've been building machines. This is well guarded.
Absolutely, but it's well not like that.
It's not.
Hey, Gary, you're really making a case for the I like buttons, and I got to tell you, the blinky lights around them really makes them more attractive.
Another thing we brought up earlier, Gary, was collision avoidance.
Okay.
And it's an easy thing to say,
right?
But what is that really? If let's say I'm ready to face my pipe and I want to bring the facer in, but notice this facer light, I just tried to bring it in, it turned red, and the facer didn't pivot in.
Right.
So that means I get a message over here that says, hey, collision avoidance been activated. You need to move something.
Yep.
So I get a red light telling me I can't do that. And I get in plain English, what needs to happen. I need to move something before I can index that facer in. I index the facer over, and now it operates just fine. I can pivot that facer in. Okay. That is collision avoidance. So I wouldn't have crashed that jaw or that facer into that jaw.
Yeah. That, Chris, is going to save a lot of people a lot of heartache, spare the wallet.
And I don't care how experienced you are. Whether you're a new user or experienced, we all get tired. We all get hot.
Guilty.
We all get, distracted.
Yep.
And there is real value in that, because you don't have to make that repair. You don't have to pay for it. You don't have to get another machine.
Exactly.
It just really translates throughout the job.
Downtime. And I'll ask Andy the question, since he's kind of overseeing our rental with this equipment. Andy, on the jobs where that machine's been out and come back, have you seen the damage that we similarly get with a typical, Mega Mac machine?
No, absolutely not. And I'm very happy that that's the case. I can't tell you how uncomfortable those conversations are. That's not a cheap thing to fix when you knock a facer off or break an arm or damage a heater. So that collision avoidance system is doing its job. We've had a lot of this equipment out on rent and not a single incident. So
absolutely.
I'm happy about it.
Great.
Another benefit just came to me as we were listening to Andy and having this conversation. This machine's running right now.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's coming through for our guests, but we're able to have this conversation side by side, or through Zoom, or however we're doing this, and we don't have to scream and shout and yell, and we could hear them just fine.
Chris,
well, that's my normal voice.
Did you just it is on Zoom, but this reminds me of our conversation about your affinity for technology and
I know.
And being a keeper of flip phones.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Do we want to?
So we've done it. So that answers the lockout, hydraulic lockout question. We showed the collision avoidance,
right,
which we have tested in all kinds of scenarios and tried to create those job site situations.
We have tried, but that is not a challenge to our users. It does a lot for us, but it's not impossible.
So fantastic. So, and you mentioned the sound. If I had this one on, we would be yelling, trying to talk over it. Yeah. So with that said, Chris, I want to dive into a little bit of the operation, right? Andy mentioned it earlier in all the different levels about that automatic drag calculation, which is necessary when you're doing your fusions to calculate that drag to make sure that you're getting the full true pressure that you need to create a quality fusion weld
Right.
on there. And so why don't you go ahead and get ready to demonstrate that. And while you're doing the drag calculation on there,
You're going to do
I'm
it
going to
there.
go on to my tried and true Series 2 unit here.
Very
and
good.
kind of walk them through.
And we're working on the same data logger 7s
Right.
here. Okay.
Yep.
And the screens look very similar. So I'm just going to start working through my
Right,
process
exactly.
here.
So I don't have my machine on just for the sound purposes, but you know, my first step would be make sure my facing pressure is down to 0. So I'm turning down my pressure.
I'm going to press a button here that
Then-
says measure drag.
Okay. Yeah,
Okay.
you're good.
I'm just
All
going
right.
to press a little button.
And then I've got to hit my carriage and in the forward position, right? So I'm going to dial this pressure up, making sure, waiting for that to start moving, right? Once it starts moving, now I got to turn it down. I just want it to barely creep as it's moving.
Chris, you
How's
still
it,
get a
how's it
latte
going
now,
over there,
you're done.
Gary?
Once I get to that, I look at my gauge on here and I see that I've got my gauge pressure, right? So let's just say it's 100 PSI in the simulation. I've now got to go to my heating mode, which is over here on my
Gary, I
selector
don't know
valve.
if you can see what's going on the iSeries here. That carriage is moving. It's calculated the drag. It's performing the slip check for me, all while I'm able to stand here and enjoy watching you work.
Chris, but you know, I'm really efficient at this. So
I
I
know
now
you
added
are.
100
I'm really
PSI
efficient
to my
at this.
heating stage right here. Now I go down to my fusion pressure and I've calculated my fusion pressure on here, but I got to make sure I add that 100. And you notice I used 100 because I can add that really
And we're
easy.
done here,
You know,
Gary.
heaven forbid it was some.
Drags
oddball
38
number.
PSI
Yeah.
on this thing. All of my valves have been preset
Yeah.
to the appropriate
I'm
pressures
almost there,
for me,
Chris.
and I'm done.
I mean,
Gary,
I'm
you
almost
look
there.
exhausted. Don't stress yourself out.
You know, so now I've got that set. Now I'm ready to bring and start my heater process.
No, Gary, you forgot the slip check. Wait, Chris did that too?
Slip check. Dang it. Forgot the slip check. Yeah,
Yeah,
you can
it's-
see. All right.
So I don't know if it really came across there, but you literally just press a button here and confirm the action, and it does everything for you. The nice thing about that is it does it reasonably fast, okay? But it's going to do it the same way every time. And Gary, you and I both know with drag compensation or calculating drag,
Mhm.
even the most experienced operators, we could have a room full of them on the same job, same setup,
Right.
calculating it in much the same way, but they're going to come up with a little different number.
Right.
Okay. Just a little different. With the iSeries, we get that consistency every
Right.
single time.
Well, let me ask you a question, Chris, on the drag compensation. If I'm operating that machine, the operator's doing it, and he's doing the same type of weld, he's welding a 40-foot stick, right? And he's bringing making that long string of pipe.
Right.
Does he need to do the drag calculation every time?
Well, just like on a legacy machine, a typical job site, if you're setting up pulling pipe, okay, you're going to have one stick of pipe in a pipe stand. You fuse it, pull the pipe, add another single stick of pipe in a pipe stand,
Mhm.
fuse it, pull it. So your drag's really not going to be changing because your setup isn't changing from joint to joint. If that happens to be the type of job site you're describing to me, then we do have the functionality to just use the previous drag, just like you would on a legacy
Right.
machine. Here, you just push a button, say use previous drag. The machine's going to go automatically to the slip check
Mhm.
portion
Yep.
of the sequence. It's going to check for slippage, make sure you grip tightly enough on the pipe, and you'll be ready to heat.
If I'm doing level 3, it's going to do drag calculation automatically, correct?
Yes, level 1, 2, or 3,
Automatically.
automatically.
Yeah. There you go. So highly
Not too
recommended.
shabby.
Very, very, very simple to use. And yeah, I'm kind of sweating here, Chelsea. I don't know.
I
I'm
know.
gonna go through all that gymnastics.
worried about
there
you,
on the
Gare.
machine.
You know, and
Easy,
when-
man.
as we're talking about these things, drag calculations, shift sequence, hydraulic lockouts, Andy, I know you probably have experienced this in the field. Until you get your hands on an iSeries machine and you have the opportunity to interact with it for yourself, it's really hard to appreciate fully the extent to which this fusion technology has evolved.
I
We
totally
want-
agree. And
Yeah.
anybody who knows me knows I'm a big fan of technology, but I'm also a big fan of the tried and true, right? So I got some friends, Chris, that's still walking around with flip phones.
Walking around with
So-
flip phones. Well,
Yeah,
Andy,
Chelsea mentioned those guys earlier. Oh, you got one?
I-
Nice.
I just
So-
happen to have one here, so I know the kind of guy
He's
you're
a-
talking about.
Now, Chris,
Yeah,
does that
so-
make
He's a level 4 guy too.
work on that flip phone?
This predates McCalc, I think. But I know
So,
the kind
Chris,
of guy
what-
you're talking about.
What do you tell the guy who loves the flip phone about the iSeries machine? How do you get him comfortable with this thing?
Yeah, I think the iSeries has something for everybody. And as think of the evolution of cell phones from the flip phone to, today's whatever you may happen to have. The technology gets better and better, but it's also easier to operate. I was looking at this flip phone. I don't know that how I get to my pictures or, today it's all just right in front of you. It's
Right.
intuitive. You don't have to buy your phone and read the manual. To be able to operate it. The iSeries is much the same way. And I am a little bit old school. I've been here at McElroy for 30 years. I've seen a lot of water under the bridge and a lot of track stars go out the door. But I can tell you, if that flip phone guy gets his hand on an iSeries machine, he's going to find something that's going to make his life easier.
Yeah. And I want anybody who's out there, part of this is, you're going to see this machine. It's coming. If you're renting a machine or you're going to be in the market to buy a machine, this is the next generation, right? There's no getting around it.
It's the future of fusion.
We want everybody to get comfortable with it, and it really is very simple to operate.
Absolutely. Did you have something to mention, Andy?
Nope, I'm all good.
Oh, okay. You seem ready, poised to
I'm
ask
ready.
the question. But we do want to offer this opportunity for any of you to, if there's any questions that we haven't tackled yet, go ahead and put those in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. And we've got probably about 10 minutes still that we can answer any of those questions. We also have one final poll question that we want to ask all of you, and that's just pertaining to whether or not you are considering an iSeries in the near future. So go ahead and ask that while we talk about a couple other things here. Andy, who, as I mentioned, is on our rental team, wants to tell you a little bit about what we're doing here at ISCO to make the iSeries more available for our customers. So Andy, take it away.
Absolutely, yeah. So I mentioned it a little bit earlier, and I'd like to hit it again. We have iSeries equipment coming into our fleet by, in the next year, most of our large diameter fleet will be iSeries technology. We're really proud of that. I just want to remind you, if you're working with us, we're going to make sure that you understand what you're working with, and we're going to have qualified people on your job site to help get you comfortable and demo that machine. I mentioned also earlier that we're going to be doing, in partnership with McElroy, in-market demonstrations. So we're going to come to markets around the U.S. with iSeries and invite people out for lunch and hear directly from us and from McElroy about iSeries equipment. The next one we have coming up is April 12th in the Orlando area, so be on the lookout for that. Real quickly, while we're waiting for the poll to wrap up, I want to tell you a little bit about ISCO's equipment offering. So in case you don't know, we have a nationwide fleet of rental equipment to meet all your fusion needs. That covers everything from PPR equipment, Acrobat line to, T1200s and everything in between, really. We've got electrofusion covered, squeeze tools. It's a nationwide fleet, but available local anywhere in the U.S. I mentioned earlier, too, another thing that we're extremely proud of is we have a well-maintained fleet with an average age of 5 years across our whole fleet. What that means for you is less downtime, less problems, less failures with the equipment. And that's something that we keep front and center. Another thing we offer along the lines of support is a 24/7 Fusion hotline. We have McElroy master mechanics spread out across the U.S. answering that from 7 to 7 Eastern. And then we have an answering service on the off hours that gets those messages to our qualified technicians to get you an answer. We also have the ISCO Garage and Fusion Fundamentals platform supported by QR code on select equipment throughout our fleet. And lastly, we have a nationwide team of Fusion technicians to support rental and training. I would throw our regional sales managers into that too. A lot of those are qualified to come out and do a demonstration for you. But really, our fusion technicians lead the charge on the training initiative here at ISCO.
All right, thanks so much, Andy. And we do have a couple questions that we do want to go over and hit here real quick for Chris and Gary. But before we do that, I want to call out that Andy couldn't remember what a QR code was called, so he had to make a little note for himself here. So I'm very proud of you for nailing that.
Yeah.
So proud of you,
Just takes
buddy.
practice, that's all.
So proud of you. All right, we got a couple questions here. Do you need to have a DL7 for the automatic drag calculation? That's the first question.
Well, the automatic drag calculation is part of the iSeries machine, and to operate the iSeries machine, it does require a DL7. So they go hand in hand. You can't do any fusion of any kind without the DL7 on the iSeries.
You can do everything else on the iSeries. You just can't fuse any pipe
You
without the data
maneuver
logger
it around
7.
the job site
Right.
if you want to, drive it around. But
Right.
yeah.
All right, and the other question we have is how many different models of the iSeries are there right now? Well,
it depends on what you're asking, really. The TrekStar iSeries is available in a 630i, which is a 24-inch equivalent, a 900i, which is a 36-inch TrekStar, and a 1200i, which is a 48-inch TrekStar. Two of those three are also available in different carriage cylinder configurations, depending on what part of the world you're in and what type of fusion standard you happen to be using. And then each of those machines are also available in different CARB compliant configurations for the diesel package, stage 5 and stage 3A. So if you have, whether you have high sulfur diesel or low sulfur diesel. So in any combination of those. So there's actually quite a few in 3 basic size platforms.
So I'll ask the question that probably everybody's wanting to know: when are the next sizes coming out in the iSeries? Chris, I'm going to put you on the spot.
Yeah, you are putting me on the spot, and I really can't say when, Gary, or if, but I can tell you we're focused right now on the launch and integration of the iSeries technology in the field, and making sure our customers are successful with the range that we offer today. And I think based on what we've seen so far, there is more to the iSeries technology, more that can be done. And I too look forward to seeing how this continues to evolve.
Yep, absolutely.
All right, thank you guys so much. We really appreciate it. And thank you all for joining us. I know with St. Patrick's Day and the tournament going on, there's a lot happening today. So we appreciate your time with us. Just want to remind you that the ISCO Insights podcast webinar is also available as a podcast now. You can find us on Spotify, anywhere that you listen to podcasts, or you can scan this QR code, Andy, right here on the screen. He's so happy with me right now. And you can, for some of these presentations, like the one today, which is so visual, we're doing a video podcast, so you can both see and hear what we've been talking about today if you had to jump off for any reason or if someone missed the presentation. You can also find us and a link to the podcast and future Insights episodes on any social media site. We're on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram. We're everywhere. So if you want any information, reach out to us on any of our social media pages, or you can go to our website, isco-pipe.com/insights, to see upcoming episodes. Coming in April, we're going to be talking about PVC and HDPE, having a deep dive in that conversation. So we look forward to hopefully seeing you there as well. Thank you so much for joining us. Be safe today, and we'll see you next time.